as far as quality goes, like, I'm not going to get into the MP3 versus wave quality. I tend to buy all my music because I like the sound of wave, especially in a club sound system. I think you really notice the difference in quality from a 320 MP3 to a 1411 kilobits a second AIF or wave file. So as you notice, I have RCA going into channel 1 here, and then I actually, out of the CDJ, there's two outputs. There's RCA and then there's coaxial, which I have going into the digital input. Now, every time that you convert from digital to analog to digital and digital to analog and so on, you introduce minute distortion in the sound. And you might not be able to hear it, but on a huge sound system, when it gets amplified, it definitely comes through, and you can not only damage speakers but people's ears. I'm actually just going to turn the gains at the same amount here. Now you'll notice right off the bat, without the speakers playing, the digital signal is actually quieter. And the difference is, this has to send an electrical signal through it. It leaves as a digital file, gets processed into an electrical signal, sends that electrical signal down this cable, and it kind of has to give it some boost to get that current to travel through the full way without losing its intensity when it gets to the other end. Whereas a digital file, it sends ones and zeros, a code. And that's all your digital song is, that's all your MP3 and your wave file is ones and zeros. It gets translated into an electrical signal through your speakers, which you then hear. So the longer that you can keep that digital signal without converting it, the further down the line, the more clean of a sound you're going to get. So, if we have it exiting the CDJ into a digital signal, it's going to enter the mixer in a digital signal, which then gets processed digitally, at least in the DJM 800 and like the new 900 and the 2000s. I don't believe the DJM 600, which is kind of older, and like some of the earlier Pioneer mixers, they don't have a digital processing signal. But what ends up happening is it enters the mixer digitally, it gets processed digitally, so it's still just ones and zeros. It doesn't degrade the quality at all. And then it leaves the mixer and it gets converted into an analog signal then. Because then it gets sent as an analog signal into the club sound system and then into the speakers. If I didn't do it with the digital cables, which a lot of DJs do, or if you have a controller or a Serato or Sayer, it exits. It's a digital file. It exits as an electrical signal, enters the mixer. It gets converted into a digital signal. It then exits the mixer as an analog signal again, enters the club sound system's processing, which is all digital probably, and does EQ and limiter and all that stuff, and then it gets processed again into an analog signal, which then exits into the speakers. Pretty sure that's how it works. I took a year of audio engineering, just a little bit background for why I know all this. So the longer you can keep the digital signal, it doesn't have any degrade of quality. Like with that electrical signal going through the wire, if you stretch this cable 100 feet that way, it's not going to have the same intensity at the other end, because it loses, it's electricity. It has resistance. It has resistance down the cable that slowly over time it loses the power that it had entering the cable. But a digital cable has a 1 and a 0, an on and off signal. And either the signal's going to get to the other end or it's not. There's no degraded quality whatsoever. And when you're playing WAV files and AIFF, it really helps to keep that signal going as far as possible. And they're mixing in one track to another. There's some DJs who don't quite understand that, especially with the bass. And I talked about the summing of the mixer here. The way audio works is it's a wave, and if your wave has the same sort of wavelength, it actually adds to each other and doubles in intensity. And and then it's especially noticeable with the bass. So if you have two songs playing, and you have both their basses going, and you have both of them going, you're going to have twice as much bass going to a subwoofer, which can really overload it on the mixer. Sorry, on the speakers. So just try and keep your one bass knob turned down. You know, it doesn't have to be all the way. Sometimes you can get away with the halfway or whatever. But if you have both of them going at the same time, bass lines tend to clash a lot of the time. They don't play nice with each other. The odd time it does, they do when they're in the same key, but for the most part you're going to get a really muddy sound. It sounds just garbled when two bass lines are hitting at the same time, or two bass kicks. You know, they double the intensity and it just can drown out each other. So, you know, you want to just kill one bass when you're mixing in and the other, and you know, do a switch or a gradual switch. So that's my tip for EQing. As far as levels go as well, when you're using effects, be aware that effects add to the volume, the output volume. When I turn a filter on, you may think it's getting quiet. It gets quieter when you do a fucking filter sweep down, low pass. But if we go into Ableton here, I'm going to actually just record this. See my signal coming in here. So you have a signal coming in from the mixer here, and that's what it looks like. If you imagine that's what it sounds like, that's what it looks like. If I boost it, you can see it's so much that it's actually hitting the top of the file. And it's actually boosted that much. You can see what's happening here if you zoom in far enough. It's hitting the top of the lanyard, and that's what I was saying with an analog signal is you have an electrical signal that can only handle so much current through the cable. And if you boost it too much, it hits the top of it, and instead of being a nice smooth curve, like which sound is when it travels, you get this, imagine it just hits the roof, and then it straightens out, and then it comes back down again. And that's what distortion is. It's a very jagged sound. It's not, you know, and then if we add a limiter here on this, I can show you what that would look like further to the sound here, I guess. Oh, actually, I won't show it. I lied. So, let's not boost all our freaking shit here. I guess effects. I'll show you how effects add to the signal. If I turn on echo, it went up on the actual mixer on the lights here, but you can see the signal went back up again. If I turn it down, the signal goes back down to a nice level here. Zoom in and show you what I mean. So, with effect on, adds a lot to the mixer. Especially the crush. You know, some people like to use the crush. I really don't actually like it. Use it very sparingly, but if you boost the crush, it adds a ton of distortion into the mix. That's really not only hurtful to your ears, but to the sound systems as well. So yeah, I think that's pretty good coverage on what to do here. So just a little recap. Try and keep your lights on your mixer in the green or the yellow at most. Don't go into the red. It's not needed. You're not making it louder. You're just making the sound super distorted. There's a sound guy in every club that knows that DJs do this, and it's just going to turn down the signal on the actual sound system from your lack of responsibility on quality control on how to keep the music at a reasonable level. You know, it can be bumping, but it's not your say on what is loud enough. It's not your say unless you're a sound guy. So I just want to add one quick thing in here, and that's there's no correct way or incorrect way to DJ or EQ with what I said. It's what I was mainly touching on was that there is one wrong way to do it, and that's to not care about your sound and to just be up there because you want to be a star, and you're not actually there for the music that you enjoy to play and that you want other people to hear the way that it was meant to be heard, the way that the producer made it to be heard. And you may find a completely different way to do DJing and EQing and all that I did. The only thing I can just say is just don't be the dude that boosts everything to full and cranks everything to full because you want to be the loudest guy. The loudest isn't the best. The clearest and punchiest and best sound is the greatest way you can be. And that's all I have to say. So my name's Dan. Thanks.